The biggest threat to TCU in the Big 12 recently signed a contract extension.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Steven Simcox. I've been covering TCU athletics for the past 12 years. We are brought to you today by, actually, we're not brought to you by a title sponsor today. I guess I should have checked the ad log before I started talking, but here we are. Thanks for joining us. A lot of news to get to today. TCU women's basketball has added their first portal player, Clara Silva, a 6'7" center out of Kentucky. One day after Mark Campbell's season's over, he's already hard at work in the transfer portal and recruiting. Ernest Udeh, a big factor for TCU men's basketball for the past 2 seasons. He is apparently going to test the transfer portal waters. TCU baseball gets a 5-4 victory over UTSA tonight. Cole Kramer with a walk-off sac fly. Carson Bowen had a double in the bottom of the 9th to start that inning. May have been misplayed by the right fielder, but hey, we'll call it a double. And comes around to score. Pinch runner came around to score a couple batters later. But we start today with news that Coach Prime is going to be at Colorado for the foreseeable future. He is locked up with the Buffs through 2029. It's a contract extension of 5 years, and the compensation is going to total $54 million. He's making about $10 million a year, which makes him the highest paid coach in the Big 12 and a top 10 paid coach in the country. So why am I bringing this up on a TCU podcast? Well, since Oklahoma and Texas left, there has been a long debate, honestly, since the news broke at Big 12 Media Days a few years ago that Texas and Oklahoma were negotiating with the SEC and were on their way to leaving the conference. There's been a debate about which school or which program will step up and take over as the new flagship team in this league. And a lot of teams had good arguments for that. All the Texas teams, whether it's Baylor or Texas Tech or TCU, had similar arguments. Well, best high school football state in the country. So the ability to recruit in your backyard is big. Schools and programs that are committed to winning, that have good financial backing, good facilities, and that have the desire to win. There's schools like Oklahoma State that are like, hey, we've been around for a while. We've had a lot of success under Mike Gundy, not so much recently, but at that time especially, it felt like they could be a factor. Now, the league has changed a lot over the past few years. Added BYU, Houston, UCF, Cincinnati, then added all those Pac-12 schools as well. And so when Utah joined, they were very vocal about, hey, we're going to be the ones to run this conference. That didn't pan out in year one. And we have a very limited sample size. We've got 1 year of actual play on the field, which Arizona State won the league. And we have a few years, a few recruiting cycles now where the news was public and people at least knew that the winds were shifting and things were trending this way. And I honestly think right now, there's not a clear answer to this question, because I don't feel like anyone is recruited or has shown consistently that they can recruit at a high enough level year after year to sustain enough talent to take on the rougher years. And what I mean by that is you're going to have peaks and valleys within your development cycle. The best teams are able to weather those storms because they just have so much talent on their roster. Traditionally, TCU hasn't necessarily been in that camp. There's been some up and down and some volatility, especially when they made the move to the Big 12. But I think TCU is a very attractive job and a great situation, great location, and has the type of mentality and unity from the boosters, from the fan base, to be a consistent winner in this league. And when I was talking a few weeks ago about the playoff expanding soon and automatic qualifiers and how the SEC and Big Ten really want to have those automatic qualifiers and they want to shut out the ACC and the Big 12. I mentioned that I thought the two biggest brands in the conference right now were BYU and Colorado. BYU, because of their national reach, and that a lot of that comes from their association with the LDS Church. And Colorado, because of Coach Prime. It is because of him. Yes, Colorado has some history. They won a national title in the 90s. They've had success before. They've competed in the Big 12 before. But all the hype around Colorado as a football program right now centers around Coach Prime. And I think BYU and Colorado are the biggest threats to TCU as far as if we're talking about being a consistent winner in this league. And the biggest threat is Colorado because of the types of players that Deion can attract. When he took the job at Jackson State, I was doing a daily radio show at that time. And my co-host and I were actually pretty bullish on that move. And we both had sort of the same thought. Well, he's at an FCS school, and he's going to be able to attract talent there that nobody else can because of who he is, because of the brand recognition, and because of his name, and because of the career that he had, and also just because of his personality. I mean, he is a very outgoing, personable guy. I haven't met him myself, but I know people I worked with. They used to go cover the Super Bowl on Radio Row. He was on Radio Row a few times, and when he enters a room, he knows everybody, or he acts like he knows everybody. And he's great at the media part of things. And he's also just Deion Sanders, one of the best athletes in the past 30 or 40 years. And so he walks into somebody's living room, and he commands respect, and he has used that and leveraged that to get talented players, to hire talented coaches. And John Jaquise Taylor, JJT, who used to write for the Dallas Morning News, and I'm honestly not sure if he's still affiliated with the outlet right now or if he's just freelancing, but he wrote a book about Coach Prime. And he told Dan Patrick, he was like, look, his approach to coaching is he talks to his assistant coaches and he's like, what do you need? Tell me the types of players you need, and I will go get them. And then once I get them, it's your job to coach them up. And that's not me saying he's not involved in the X's and O's. That's not a strength of his. But I think the biggest strength that coaches can display is understanding what they're good at and utilizing that in the best way possible. And so Deion has a very good understanding of who he is and what he can do. And so he's focused really heavily on talent acquisition. Now, to this point, he has not been super active in the high school ranks as compared to the transfer portal. With this contract extension, I expect they'll really start hitting the road hard in finding guys that are going to be around for 3 or 4 years. And this is big for Colorado. It does not guarantee that he will be there forever or for the entire length of that contract. But it increases his buyout, and contract extensions, more than anything, are PR moves. It's not as much about the dollars and the cents, even though it is, but it's about, hey, we are making a commitment to each other. We are publicly showing everyone that we're in this for the near future. And if you want to come calling about your job, about the possibility of him leaving, then it's going to cost you more money. So TCU is going to have to recruit at a high level. And in the one game they played against Colorado was that a conference? No, I guess that wasn't a conference game. You know what I mean. Season opener, a couple of years back, they played Colorado. They're going to play Colorado this year. Deion outcoached Sonny. which is unfortunate to say, but it's the reality. TCU is not ready to play. The reasons for that, I don't fully understand. They were coming off an outstanding season. The nation was watching, but they weren't ready to play. Colorado was. They took it to them and they punched them in the mouth, and TCU couldn't recover fully. They recovered and made it a competitive game, but they couldn't get to a place where they got control of that game again. So he's going to be a factor in this league for the foreseeable future. And that means TCU has to find a way to recruit at a high level, because this is now one of the few schools in this conference that I think can consistently keep up with them from a talent acquisition standpoint. And TCU, over the last few recruiting cycles, I think they've done a good job of combining, finding guys that are very talented and that are more, can't miss prospects, but also trusting their scouting, playing the long game, evaluating players at these camps that they put on, and trying to find guys that maybe when they come in as a freshman, they're not ready to contribute, but within a couple of years, they're ready to go. That's a key for everyone, but it's especially a key for TCU when we talk about what they want to do and where they want to go and how to sustain success moving forward. But yeah, big news. And this came down last week, but I had some other things I was talking about, and so I didn't get a chance to get around to it. I do want to highlight, though, Deion Sanders in this for the long haul with Colorado, which is a big question mark, at least taken off the table for now when we talk about the future of that program and where they're going, because it all hinges on what he wants to do. When we come back, Ernest Udeh is in the transfer portal. TCU basketball, complete roster rebuild coming. We'll talk about it next year on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. SupplyHouse. If you're in the HVAC business, if you're a plumber, if you do electrical work, SupplyHouse is a reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info, help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? SupplyHouse offers expert support and industry-leading service. You'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. And that promo code is SH5 for 5% off your first order from SupplyHouse. So some big news in the world of TCU men's basketball. Ernest Udeh is hitting the transfer portal. He's decided he's going to move on, it appears, from TCU now. Of course, we have the caveat always when we talk about portal news and guys entering in there. You can come back if you would like. If he doesn't end up finding what he wants in the portal, he can return to TCU if both sides are agreeable. But the fact that it's been a couple weeks now since the season has ended and he's making this decision, I believe tells me that he weighed this for a while and finally decided, you know what, I'm going to move on. Ernest Udeh had a fascinating career in a Horned Frog uniform. That was a big deal when they landed him from Kansas. He was a blue chip, highly rated recruit, didn't really play at all at KU in his freshman season, decides I'm going to move on, I'm going to go somewhere else. TCU lands him. If you look at the raw numbers, you would probably say, well, what's the big deal? This past season, 6 points, 7.5 rebounds, shot 63% from the floor. The year before that, 4.5 points per game, 5.5 rebounds. But they're going to miss him on defense a lot. He was the anchor of that defense, good rim protector. And Ernest also, I mean, he would frustrate me with this ability sometimes too, because he would step out in the perimeter and he would swipe at the ball. Now he had an ability and a knack for getting steals. he also would sometimes get a foul 30 feet from the hoop. And that would just drive me insane because it's like, dude, you're 7 feet tall or you're 6'11", but you know what I mean. You're the biggest guy on the floor in a lot of these games. Stop getting called for fouls on the perimeter. But it just highlights his defensive ability. Now, offensively, Ernest never really added much. He was a rim runner. He could throw a lob down and get the house going crazy like nobody else on this team. David Punch, I guess, rivaled him in that way. But this is a big loss. I mean, this is a guy that's played a ton of minutes for you over the past few years. Now, you can go in the portal and go get somebody. But still, he's been a very consistent player for this team for 2 seasons. The lack of offensive game or the lack of variety in his offensive game was frustrating to me. But it doesn't negate the fact that he's a good defender, a good rebounder. And there were times, this year against Baylor, like he owned the second half of that ball game. And a lot of it was because he was just so relentless on the glass. He wasn't a great free throw shooter, but he improved in that area this season. There's things to like about Ernest Udeh in his game. It's unfortunate it didn't work out at TCU. The good news or the positive spin on this in my mind is the team this year was going nowhere. And part of that was injuries, but a lot of it was just the personnel they had on the floor. Vashawn Allet's moving on. Frankie Collins is moving on. Ernest Udeh now. All those guys in the transfer portal. Noah Reynolds, Brendan Wenzel. Like, this is going to be a completely different roster next season. Isaiah Manning's in the portal. Caden Edwards, your freshman coming in. You got Brock Harding from Iowa. Chase Posey returning. Diallo coming back. Punch coming back, hopefully. But now you need to go get a big man in the portal. And when I say a big man, I mean a true 5. Because Punch is going to play that power forward role. And hopefully he can become a stretch 4 and can shoot the ball better from the perimeter. But if he's not super consistent at that, then you really have a need for more of an interior presence. And it needs to be somebody who can play defense and can rebound. Those are the 2 big components that you have to have on this roster now with Ernest moving on. This is a big offseason for Jamie Dixon and his coaching staff. He's done this before where he's just totally recalibrated the roster in one offseason and it's worked out. But he did all of that around Mike Miles. And I've expressed this concern in previous podcasts, but the thing that gives me pause right now is I don't really know who the centerpiece of this roster is, and I don't think they do either. There's guys that they would like it to be. I believe if you sat down with them, they'd say, well, we hope David Punch can be that type of guy. We hope Caden Edwards could come in and be an immediate contributor, or Micah Robinson in year 2, but there's no proven commodity. And that's something that the team is going to have to work on and get right in the coming months. But as far as Udeh goes, where you're going to miss him is on the defensive side of the floor. And offensively, he was good in the pick and roll game. But finding a player that can put up 6 points a game from the center position is not going to be the challenge. The challenge is can you find somebody who has anywhere close to that type of athleticism? Because Ernest is he has rare physical traits. That's why he was so popular in the portal when he, made that move from Kansas. You can't teach 7 feet. You can't teach somebody who can jump out of the gym and can run and can play out on the perimeter because they're comfortable there because they have the athleticism to make plays. And not everyone can do that. So best of luck to him. I hope he finds out where he needs to go. It just felt like the pieces weren't all fully together for both him and the coaching staff as they were trying to develop him and mold him into the type of player they wanted him to be. And you have some young dudes who can play, but nobody who has that defensive prowess, and really rebounding ability that Ernest brought to the table. On the flip side of things, Mark Campbell already doing some work in the transfer portal. That's next year on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. It's the start of the month. It means bills are coming out. You're tracking your bank account. You're seeing, do I have everything I need to take care of things? Why don't you download the Monarch Money app today? You can be your own personal CFO. It gives you full visibility and control of your finances. It's not just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts. You're spending in one place. So stop managing your money and start building wealth. They have all-in-one convenience and easy collaboration. You can make things easy for you and your partner as it can track shared and personal accounts. You can set goals and stay on the same page. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off of your first year. That's a great deal. Take advantage of it. Do it today. And Monarch Money, download the app.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Thanks to our friends Isaac Shade and Andy Patton, getting ready to take you through Final Four weekend. All one seeds in the Final Four. How about that? If you had all one seeds in your bracket, you're a coward. I'm just kidding. I'm just jealous because I didn't. I had Michigan State beating Auburn. I was very wrong about that, and that took me out of first place in a couple of bracket challenges. So I'm still dealing with that. On the women's basketball side of things, TCU unfortunately saw their season come to an end on Monday night, but they are already doing work in the transfer portal today. Clara Silva from Kentucky announced her commitment to the Frogs. She is from Portugal. That's where she played her high school ball. And the number's not eye-popping. 4 points a game last year, 2.5 rebounds, shot 56% from the field. But she was a true freshman at Kentucky, and she did have some really good games. Had 12 points in against LSU, and that was over 30 minutes. Had 18 points in a non-conference game this season against Northern Kentucky, 14 points in the season opener. So had some games where she was really effective. There's a couple things that are clear about Mark Campbell and his system. He's running a spread pick and roll. He wants ball dominant guards who can create their own shot and can work off screens and create shots for others. And he has a big time need for post players. Silva is 6'7". Sedona Prince was 6'7". They signed 3 high school players in this class. Sarah Portlock, who is 6'8". Emily Hunter is 6'7". He is building a very tall team. And because of the international side of this, I would imagine these are pretty skilled post players. They're not afraid to step outside. They're not afraid to, work in the pick and pop game. So this is a big pickup. I mentioned yesterday, Skim Mulkey, who's a women's basketball insider, was reporting TCU was a front runner for Olivia Miles. No real smoke on that yet. But if that happens, well, you've already got 2 really talented and interesting players for next season and already trying to get in there and reload. Maddie Shear, also from Kentucky. Now, Maddie and Claire didn't play together, but another offseason where they go after a Kentucky Wildcat and get them in the transfer portal. TCU baseball won tonight 5-4 over UTSA. UTSA is a good team. They've only lost 7 games coming into this ball game. Carson Bowen with a leadoff double in the 9th inning, and then they pinch ran for him, but a couple batters later, Cole Kramer, sac fly, gets the job done pushes a run across, and the Frogs win 5-4. They play Thursday, Friday, Saturday against BYU. Should be fun to watch that. We'll be back tomorrow. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Don't forget to please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're also free and available wherever you get your podcast.